weekly, it's the weekly, it's the weekly, it's the weekly go.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here on the Weekly Gulp, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine, if that is in fact what we are. We are here with John and Kat from the Phantasmagorium Show. Hey guys.
Hey
everybody.
Okay, and today, sue us, we are going to spoil the crap out of two movies, fairly new release movies. One is the latest Jordan Peele horror comedy sci-fi. Well, it's the latest Jordan Peele movie, and we're also going to spoil the latest not Guy Ritchie film, Bullet Train. But we're going to start off with Nope. John, I know you're super high on this one, so why don't you start the discussion off, sir?
We're going to talk spoilers. So, this is a film that is very rewarding if you can go in blind and don't know a lot about it. So if you really have even the slightest interest in seeing Nope, we hate to send you away and not have you continue on this podcast with us, but that's the better choice. Go watch the movie and then come on back and listen to what we have to say about it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I knew next to nothing about this movie except it was Jordan Peele and there was something in the sky. And it's all the better for it. I got to see it with you last week, my first time in IMAX, an entire IMAX movie experience. It was amazing. And it made the movie that much better.
After that viewing of Nope, I am so sold on the format. It's been years since I had seen anything in IMAX. And I'm just ready to go to whatever the next movie that's really worth seeing in IMAX. I will be there to check it out because it was a way better experience than seeing it in the regular theater. Just the picture quality, the sound quality. This movie, let's move on and talk about the movie. But one of the big standouts of this movie, I would say, is its sound design, and to be able to see that with whatever they have in the IMAX theater. It was awesome.
I want to say the sound system they had set up almost trumped the visual experience. It was so good.
It really was. But let's talk about the movie specifically. I like, Ben, how you said this is the latest Jordan Peele horror comedy sci-fi. It's a Jordan Peele movie, and I'm starting to think that is the mark of a Jordan Peele movie, is that it mixes a lot of different genres. You cannot just call it one thing. And he does a really good job most of the time. I mean, I had issues with some of the mixture of it in his first two films, but I think this one he nailed it, where the mixture works perfectly for me. It's a really great blend of all of those things, of horror, of sci-fi, of comedy, and just of his own style. A lot like a Quentin Tarantino, I would say. His movies are very different than Quentin Tarantino's, but I think he's starting to have his own niche where his films have a really distinct feel to them that other filmmakers don't necessarily find.
Well, we draw a lot of comparisons with him and M. Night Shyamalan because, again, Shyamalan's someone where it's like, hey, there's a new Shyamalan movie coming out. You don't really know how to categorize what that movie is going to be. Is it a horror? Is it a sci-fi? Is it a drama? It's just an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's very similar. And their ambitious nature is very similar. Their originality, swing for the fences mentality, whether it works or doesn't work, at least they're trying. I draw a lot of comparisons between the two of those because I do feel like they are both making original content. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but they're always trying, and I respect the hell out of that. Kat, did you see this movie when it first came out, or did you see it just like late like I did?
I saw it on opening day.
So what was your experience with it?
I think there's a lot of interesting concepts in the movie. I don't think they coalesce very well. But I get the whole thing with the Steven Yeun's character. He got lucky. Yeah, he got lucky taming the chimps who figures, I could, just tame this monster like this, which is why you have the parallel with Daniel Kaluuya, that the whole Haywood.
At least you get that though. There's people that don't understand the correlation. It's like, no, it's pretty obvious.
So you have that correlation. It's like, okay, the movie opens with that biblical quote because the monster in the third act kind of looks like the biblical description of an angel. Okay, I can see where they're going with their feasting and the idea that they've always been here. People believing in angels because they're talking about the clouds, and angels are supposed to be in the clouds. Like, okay, I get all that. The first half of the film, I couldn't stand the Keke Palmer character. I'm like, why did you have her stay around instead of Keith David? He would have been better. I thought
Keith David is always better.
Yes, I thought the Fries guy was funny, and even funnier still that he mentions that his sister was like on the CW, because both of those things don't exist anymore.
I love Angel. He's great.
Yeah, and I especially loved the cinematographer they got, Antlers Holst, played by Michael Wincott. He's always fun to see in a movie like this.
Oh God, Michael Wincott is a national treasure. I love him.
He is,
and his voice.
As he gets older, his voice gets more like raspy. It's like when he's doing the Purple People Eater, I had chills.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, that was really good. I didn't really buy that he would have, died in the way that he did, because he already kind of got a bunch of magic shots, and I get what Jordan Peele is saying, that it's about spectacle and the lengths people go for spectacle, and I'm thinking, well, you don't have to be one of those people who feel the need to document every moment of their life on camera to probably want to take a picture of a UFO.
Yeah, so, you know what I think it was, Kat? I think he was dying, but that's never said. So
yeah, it's never said. A lot of people were wondering that, and I was kind of wondering the same thing too.
If you watch what he's watching on TV every time they call him and we see him, it's just like raunchy, like, animals destroying it. Like,
it plays into the whole symbolism of everything. I think the movie works better with it's the way it plays with its themes than its actual literal execution sometimes, especially when it comes to the DP character and those decisions that he makes at the end. I think the movie does give you some things to make the connection to why maybe he would make that decision at the end, but it's a little vague and it leaves you kind of scratching your head when you leave the theater a bit.
Yeah.
I also kind of wish the Daniel Kaluuya character was more the focus of the climax instead of the sister, because it's like, okay, you're less annoying in the second half of the movie than you were in the first, but he's kind of been on top of kind of from the beginning. I wasn't sure if they were trying to say he actually lived or not, because when you see him in the final shot,
yeah,
he's standing under the archway and it says, out yonder. I'm like, wait a minute, is he actually that? That could go either way too.
It seems ambiguous, and again, I think that plays into how this movie works almost better as its themes and the way that it can be ambiguous than actually nailing something down and saying, well, this is actually what happens in this movie.
Right, kind of like with his last film, Us, which tries to be, on the one hand, has a very obvious theatrical level obvious metaphor, but is also very vague and ambiguous with the particulars of it, and I feel that he's doing the same thing in this movie.
Yeah, whereas I think the themes he sets out to discuss in Us just failed on every level for me. I just did not like that movie at all. I find this one so much. This one I could take or leave the symbolism. Like John like right after I saw this movie with John, he just laid out so much of the symbolism that I didn't necessarily catch while watching it, and that stuff is all great. But just as like a Jaws in the sky movie, just at face value, I just had so much fun with this movie. To me, like the camera work, there's some just original shots in this movie that are so interesting, and some of the decisions that he makes musically and with the sound design, that's the shit that why I love Nope so much. I mean, the symbolism's great. I know Jordan Peele deals with that stuff and everything, but if that shit wasn't there and this was just a bare bones like movie about a thing in the sky, like I would have loved it just the same personally.
Yeah, I think all three of his movies, he's really good at tension and suspense and atmosphere.
Yes.
And especially with I thought the cinematography, especially like you said, was gorgeous, especially at night. And every time you see the saucer kind of moving out of the clouds through the sky, it's so creepy, but it looks so.
That scene where he's running from it on the horse, and that camera just keeps going up and then back to him and up and back to him. It's so fucking cool, and it just.
I also like how he broke down the movie with each into chapters, like about each horse.
Yeah. Even though you don't like the horse, like has nothing to do with the part of the story.
Well, again, that goes back into the symbolism, which from some of the opening imagery when you see the first moving picture, the 2 seconds of a guy riding a horse, and how much that plays into the overall themes of this movie. I think the naming of the horses as chapters was giving them recognition, which a lot of this movie is about the people who don't get the proper recognition, and that, the rider of the horse in the first moving image, no one knows his name. And that's all taken from, reality. And so I think the naming of the horses and the chapters was to give recognition to the unseen.
Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense.
I wasn't sure if she was telling the truth when she said they were related to that guy, because
Yeah.
giving a pitch and trying to really sell
Well, there
it.
was a really great script moment in there, which I didn't catch, but as I started I started watching videos and stuff on the movie. She says great grandfather, and he has to correct her and say great greats, and she goes, "Yeah, there's another great in there." That's because she's reading off the original script that her dad used to say, so
Right.
that's why it says great grandfather. I'm like, what a great little detail! Like,
Yeah, she's learned his
yeah,
pitch
she knows his
verbatim,
speech,
and
but she
just
hasn't learned it for herself. Yeah, it's just wonderful, that little detail. I loved it.
and it's a nice little moment to show how much she did really care and respect her father.
Yeah.
But they obviously, what we see on the surface looks like they were at odds with each other and everything. But
she was
deep down
pretending.
inside,
Yeah. She was pretending to not be interested anymore because she felt they weren't interested in her as part of it, and like I'm sorry, Kat, I love Keke Palmer in this movie so much. I think she's like the heart of the movie. But I get what you're saying as far as like being annoying. She's a little over the top for the first half, guaranteed.
See, I have the benefit of having seen the movie twice, and I was kind of right there with you, Kat, with the first, not the first time I saw it came out still like, but the first two, I'd say, scenes with her, she was rubbing me the wrong way. It was like, especially someone who works on a set, I'm like watching her go out there and pimp herself in front of the whole crew. I was like, oh, this is like cringeworthy. But it's meant to be part of her character and how her growth throughout the film is. So I came around on all those opening scenes. In fact, Ben, when we watched it, I was loving her in the opening stuff, knowing where her character will eventually become.
Well, I knew her. I figured her out so quick in the movie, which is great. The way that he leans on her and needs her when OJ is just lost when they're asking him questions in that opening scene on set, and he has to lean on her. He's like, you need to be over here. You need to come over here. They're asking me questions. I don't know what to do. And then you shift from that to where he's talking with Stephen Yeo's character, Ricky. So when he's talking with him in the office, he's basically shutting her down, telling her to shut up because he's doing business, and she's just wanting to know more about the guy, and he's basically just like, stop talking, shut up. And I love that little parallel because, like, in one hand, he's like, I need you, get over here, you need to do all the talking. And then the very next scene where he's selling off the horses and stuff like that, he's telling her to shut up. It's just like, I don't know. It's great.
Then you get some wonderful comedy and interplay between the three characters in that scene where, he's trying to sell the horses. She won't stop asking Jupe about himself and his history. And he just loves to talk about himself and his fame. So he doesn't care. He just like puts OJ to the side and wants to go perform essentially in front of Keke. I love that scene. I love the writing in this movie. I think, having seen it twice, I think every scene works so well to inform the whole film.
Yeah. And for me, someone who does not trust and is very scared of monkeys, it had one of the most spine tingling moments I've seen in a movie in quite a while. I don't know, Kat. Some people are divided, like thinking that scene is worthless and hokey. It was terrifying to me.
I liked that scene, and it does. I mean, it's not useless because that informs Ricky's whole
right. But that's the people that say it's useless are the people that don't understand the parallels of those two stories connecting.
Yeah.
So.
And I also noticed how the masks that the kids are wearing when they go sneak into the barn kind of looks the same as the monster in one of the angles that it uses.
Huh.
Yeah, there's like the white face. There's a point towards the climax when it's first billowing open, almost like a big white sheet, that it has that appearance where it looks like it has the two black eyes and the round grayish face. He's also selling because at the Western town or whatever, he has little stuffed animals that look like the same costumes the kids are wearing.
Yeah.
Because he's profiting off of that whole thing, and even though he tells people don't bring your cameras or your phones, it's like, I guess when they go back home to tell them what they saw, nobody believed them.
So there's a lot of stuff that watching some of the other videos that are online of people, their analysis of this film and how deep they want to go into the symbolism and this and that. There's one, I don't know if I buy into this, but it was a kind of interesting image. They put together the image of the little dolls being sold, like, a collection of the dolls sitting on the rack or whatever, to see all of their faces, next to an image when the camera is moving into the studio during the Gordy attack, and it's slowly coming around the corners of the set. And it's moving past the three cameras that are facing the set. The film canisters on top of all three cameras are lined up in a way where they look exactly gray with two black dots, and they look totally like the faces of these aliens. I don't know if people are just seeing what they want to see in that, but when you put the two images next to each other, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe someone's got a point there.
I think that's kind of the idea. The fact that they're alluding to it throughout the film, but especially with the little dolls that he's selling, it's like it shows that he doesn't respect this animal. He's just seeking to make money off of it.
Well, and then there's the whole spectacle. You know,
Right.
When you enjoy the spectacle or look upon the spectacle, eventually it will consume you. That whole theme that's in the film. So I think what people were trying to say about the film canisters having the same look as the alien faces is that, you know, the film canister captures the spectacle. It's looking at the spectacle. I don't know. You have to kind of really just tie a bunch of things together if you want to go that far down the rabbit hole of symbolism. But there's little tangible things where you could say maybe.
Which I thought was pretty ridiculous when you had the TMZ guy show up, and it's like,
Yeah, that was the worst scene.
Like, you need to film this. I'm like, really? That's a bit much.
Yeah, that's a very M. Night Shyamalan moment right there, where it's like, oh, really? You were doing so well. You had to do that.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit too much. That's my least favorite character and kind of whole moment in the movie. I guess it's there to help set up her getting a motorcycle. I think they could have done other ways to accomplish that.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out for the life of me either the purpose of the green prism-like box design when the monster opens up its mouth like all the way. And I'm like, that's got to mean something, but I couldn't figure out what, because it was such an.
Some people think it looks like an old time camera, and
yeah,
so again,
no, it looks like
it
looks like a bellows extension. If you guys know what that is.
Okay, I can see that now. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like a bellows extension for sure. An old time camera where like you didn't have the luxury of lenses, so you could push your focal lens out, you know, using this like little thing that you cranked and it would extend the lens, you know. Is an interesting little thing. I agree, John, like that's exactly what it looks like, and that's probably what he's so loving, like the process of filmmaking in this movie. Like he fucking just loves this movie first and foremost over angels or over racial whatever. It's all about like a love letter to like original filmmaking, like the fundamentals of filmmaking, and I love it for that, and it sticks out all over the place.
It is totally that, but also at the same time it is pointing at filmmaking as kind of a negative, or the capture of the spectacle and the drive.
Well, not the art form, but the business. Yes.
He's making fun of the business more than. But then you have the Antlers Holst character, or Holst Antlers, whatever the fuck his name is, who is kind of that, he was trying to capture it from an artistic standpoint. He just wanted to capture that image for the sake of art, and he's still taking it too far to the point that it consumes him. So I think that message works on every level, whether it's the filmmaker, the audience, the consumer, every person's approach to spectacle and in taking spectacle is kind of covered in the movie.
Yeah, when you meet the DP, Michael Wincott, when you meet him, you think he's being an obnoxious, entitled prick to them, but you realize he's not. He is bored and he hates what his job has turned into. He's shooting a horse with X's on a green screen, and you learn really quickly from good writing, when he becomes a bigger part of the story, why he wants to get that shot, because his art form has died and he's just there. You know, like I said, when you first meet him, you think he's just being a dick to them because they're just the horse trainers, but he's not. He's just miserable.
I picked up on that when I first saw him, because it's like, okay, of course we already knew from the trailers he was going to have a bigger role, but the way he's just sitting there with this girl, he actually looks bored while you're watching.
Yeah. Do you think Jordan Peele would have named this movie Up if there wasn't already a movie called Up?
Someone said it should have been called Don't Look Up, but
I think there's already a movie called that too.
Yeah. I like Nope. Nope is so perfect to not tell you anything about the movie, but then pays off so well in so many wonderful moments.
It's so
in
funny.
The film.
That first trailer was great too, because they didn't tell you anything about what the movie was about.
Yeah, and Daniel Kaluuya just sells it so good in the car when he opens that door and looks up, and then another great camera angle, just fucking epic camera angle, and he closes that door, and you're like, he says the title of the movie right there.
That's the same thing in the barn when he sees the kids first time.
Yeah. Yep. Nope.
Some of this.
I think the reason I love Kiki, not just because she's energetic and I mean, we keep calling her by her actor name. I can't remember her character's name.
Emerald is her character name.
Yeah, Emerald. Yeah, yeah.
Emerald and OJ, the colors they're wearing at the end of the movie.
But there's the thing I like about her is like she's obviously the catalyst. I mean, so is Kaluuya. But remember, John, when I had said like when one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when the house just gets the alien monster just takes a shit on it with blood and just covers the house in blood.
Is playing.
It's so fucking great. And like the fact that Angel like, you know, hides under a table and we're like, well, what's that going to do? It's like, no, that's just what you do, because it's like a scared child. And, you know, and she hides between two chairs. It's like, none of that's going to do anything, but it's just
and
what
she looks
you
for
do.
her mother. She's looking for mommy.
Yeah, then she sees the picture of her mom, which is great, you know, but it's just like, it's one of those helpless moments where you're like, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing I can do. I'm just going to sandwich myself between two chairs because that seems safe, you know?
And of course, his name being Angel, because he's the one who's so interested in figuring out what's going on, and he's watching them on the cameras, and first alerts them to the class, like, hey guys.
Yeah. He's a way more detailed character than you get at first glance. Like, I mean, John, you notice like when they go and stay at his house that one night and they're wearing his clothes, he has like a Mr. Bungle shirt on, and then the other one has a Jesus Lizard shirt on.
Yeah, and a Rage Against the Machine. They're all borrowing his rock and roll band shirts. Yeah,
and then they're just like playing just that random scene where like Keke Palmer is like smashed up against the door because she's playing a VR game. It just has nothing to do with anything. It's just a nice piece of levity, I guess.
So now that I know about his musical taste, the scene where he's going to leave right before the raining blood happens, and they're playing
Sunglasses at Night.
I think Corey Hart is the name of the artist or whatever. And it's got that really cool slowed down version once the power starts coming back on and they're all trying to get away in the morning, which is kind of weird. I think that's just a sound design moment. I don't think we actually are supposed to, in reality, that it was playing that way. Because there's no reason for that. It's just, the powers come back on, and even if it hadn't, it's like you pointed out, Ben, music doesn't work like that. It doesn't slow down. It just
it doesn't.
off.
It was definitely an artistic choice. I loved it though. Because it's what happens when, like, if you're playing a vinyl record or a cassette tape and the power goes out, you will get like 5 seconds of you know, but regular sound doesn't work that way. But that's what's so cool about it. Even when, because this movie has, one of my favorite things about it is it has so much to do with vinyl records. You know, it's such a big character in the movie. I wish it was bigger. I wish it had more of a payoff, like somebody died from a vinyl falling on them or something. But I love that because once they establish that they have all these vinyl, like the whole rest of the sound design kind of focuses that way. And when the car, again, like this movie does such a fucking great job of giving you those Jaws moments. Like I say, the barrel on Jaws is basically like the little floaty, blowy thing.
The flag.
Whatever this thing. Yeah, the flag. Yeah. There's so many moments to let you know that the thing is near and it's coming, you know. And another one of those is when the power goes out and you hear that, you know.
Yeah, those little moments are great, kind of homage to Jaws. And that was something that I thought, Bren, when we were talking about how I kind of feel like you could say Jordan Peele is a little bit like Quentin Tarantino. They make very different movies, but I feel that Quentin Tarantino often plays a direct visual homage to a filmmaker he loves in the past, where it's like the same image, but it's just twisted in a Quentin Tarantino way.
Yes.
And there's a number of those moments in this movie too. But I think one of those. I
could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. Even musical choices that seem out of place. Like he does the same kind of stuff, you know,
Yeah, his musical choices definitely play into the Quentin Tarantino side of him. But I love how, in a Jordan Peele way, if you want to buy into his cultural take on racism in the country, he's got her sliding through caution tape, crime scene tape. And so in that heroic moment where she's doing the slide and looking back and saying, "I'm going to take you out," she's covered in crime scene.
Yeah, I get all that.
Well, that's where I see the way I see it is it's him being Quentin Tarantino, where the image is very similar to the original, but he's done his own little details to make it his own thing.
Yes,
and so
us being people that love film and are talking about this movie and praising this movie, I do not want to believe that I'm personally being alienated in the director's mind because of the color of my skin.
Well,
So,
I think it's more a discussion on police, and you can take police as
I
whatever
know,
color they are.
but yeah, no, that's true.
More just talking about making sense of some of those moments that seem like he's borrowing from other filmmakers, but twisting it into his own, his own use.
But that's what everybody does, right? I mean, that's just what you do.
It is. But the other one that I thought really stood out was the fist bump moment where you've got the bloody monkey paw, which is the name of his production company is Monkey Paw. You have that coming in for the fist bump with Jupe, and that just felt very much like his twisted version of E.T. The fingers touching and stuff.
Yeah,
and then that
so
also
much Spielberg in this movie. Yeah.
And then that's punctuated with Gordy being shot in the head right in front of Jupe. And I do feel like that kind of plays into Jordan Peele making a statement on police brutality. So there's a couple of those moments that I think play into that, whether, not everybody may see it that way, but
that may be a statement on police brutality, but it's also the most logical conclusion to keep this monkey from killing anybody else.
100%. They just did that with a tiger or something recently, or a lion or something. So it's the way it goes down when one of those animals
to me, that scene is incredible from a sheer technical perspective. Like, it's phenomenal. Like, it had me so, like I said, John, we were watching this in IMAX, so you're so enveloped, even more so than a regular movie, from the sound and just from how big the screen is. You're just completely sucked in where nothing around you exists other than that movie screen. And that scene is just shot so well to just be the creepiest fucking thing, because I know it's supposed to be kind of tragic. It's also, to me, it's probably the most horror that the movie ever goes. Watching that monkey go, and this was like taken off of real things too. When monkeys do that, and they do that, they go back and they sit down and they like collect their thoughts and they go ooh, 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 and they do all that shit, and then they decide, you know what, fuck it, I want to go back and beat on that person some more. They do that. That's on camera. Like, that has happened.
Yep.
And the way that the camera just stays on that, and you see it from the perspective of him as a boy through that tablecloth, it's just, those choices fucking priceless. Like, it's just, it's perfect. That's like a perfect scene. That's a scene that everyone's like, I don't know what it's in the movie.
It's really the scene that kept me thinking about the movie. There's a lot of this movie that kept me thinking about it, for a whole nother week till I could watch it again. But that scene is a big part of that. And I think, just playing into the shield your eyes from the spectacle, theme of the film, it just works so well. Like, the way that the blocking of that scene and everything to play into that scene, but also still just be a gripping, terrifying scene on its own. That's what I really love about this movie, is how I was very entertained all the way through on face value. There's definitely some questionable stuff. There's definitely some, in the end, I think Jordan Peele pushes his concepts too far, stretches believability.
That was on purpose, though, like, based on what you're saying about like excess and do you think that because to me, I think the last 30 minutes is possibly the weakest part of the movie, and I might be in the minority on that, but do you think that was almost a ballsy on purpose decision to kind of have the ending be just kind of excessive and repetitive?
Possibly playing up the spectacle, that it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it gets bigger and it gets more ridiculous looking, and like the music starts to get kind of weird and wonky, and
it becomes adventurous and plays into the Western motifs of the film.
Yeah, that's where it was kind of losing me. And in retrospect, I'm like, I wonder if that was kind of on purpose. Like, do you have any thoughts on that, Kat? Like, am I crazy, or?
I agree. The third act was the weakest because it felt like it was seeking all the way into B monster movie territory at that point. Again, because I didn't care for her being the one taking the lead at that point. But I think it's also that it's like the angel is coming to attack, alluding back to the opening biblical quote of the film, and it just it does feel like it's going on a bit long, and it's like he took the photos, but I guess the photos got sucked up into the monster as well, and it spit them out, and maybe it's damaged, because I'm thinking they already got the pictures, so her striving to try and take another picture, I was like, okay, and killing it in the similar way that they killed Jaws, okay,
I think she even said, "Smile, you son of a bitch."
She is taking his picture. That's
She
typically
might-
what you say when you take a picture.
She might as well have. Yeah. That.
Yes.
I thought that was dumb with her taking the well picture. I'm like, even if she lands that shot, like, who's to say that that's a legitimate shot of anything? You know, it's like
Yeah.
Exactly. Nobody's gonna look at that. They're just gonna think,
in
oh,
a world of fucking like TikTok photos. It's like, dude, that could have been
taken in a Western park that was run by a huckster.
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, no.
But see, this is where I feel like that third act does have execution problems and believability problems and everything. When I was watching it for my second viewing with all the thematic stuff rolling around in my head, I didn't care. There was still so much thematic stuff happening in those scenes that I'm still totally enjoying the movie from frame one to frame to the final frame.
That's why, again, I draw those parallels with Shyamalan. I mean, people can say what they want about him. Signs is a good example. I mean, this is nothing like Signs really, but it is in the sense that it's just taken from regular people's perspective and what can they do. Signs to me is better movie, but that's just my opinion, just because I think it's kind of like a quiet masterpiece. But the fact that there's things in that movie that you just turn a blind eye to because you're like, oh, well, that didn't really work, but who cares? This movie is so great. Like, there's so many good decisions. It's so Hitchcockian. It's so well shot and directed.
Yeah, I really liked Signs. I thought that was a more entertaining film, even if it doesn't have as much of the symbolism stuff, commentary going on in it.
It does, but I mean, it has a little bit of it, obviously.
Yeah, it has a little bit, yeah.
From a very different, Shyamalan's very ham-fisted, as is Jordan Peele. That's why I will never stop drawing parallels between the two of them. Like, Jordan Peele's only done 3 movies, but almost every Shyamalan movie could be a Twilight Zone episode, and that's what Jordan Peele is kind of doing with his filmography. Like, it's kind of funny that his Jordan Peele Presents the Twilight Zone show was a big, massive failure because he basically every movie he does is a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, I figured those would be good. I never caught any of them, but it's surprising if those
failed
worked,
fast. Yeah.
Success. Super entertaining movie on its face value. It has issues that Jordan Peele has brought to all of his films, but I still think it's his best and his best effort at filmmaking in general, because all of that comes through so well, and is just really impressive in my opinion. The step up from film 1, 2, and now on film 3, it's just. He's growing in leaps and bounds, and so I'm really excited to see where he goes. I'm not always on board with all of his messaging, but I think this film, I find it very interesting and just works so well in thematic ways that I'm ready to watch this film again and just pick more out of it, because there are lots of little details. Not going to spend all day talking about it, but there are so many little details hidden in every frame that it's a joy to revisit this movie, I think.
I agree. And I respect the shit out of him because, again, he's making original content. And, people are like, oh, I think Nope is a failure. It's like, dude, it's already made $100 million and it's not an existing property of any kind. It's an original thing that's made that kind of money. How is that a failure? And it's still making money. It's I don't know what people were expecting it to make. You had very ambiguous trailers that didn't really show you what it was about, and aside from Daniel Kaluuya, you didn't have like stars in it. So it's like, I think it's a fucking massive success, in my opinion.
Yeah. Ben, you were talking about the ape scene being the most horrific or horror centric scene. And I agree with you, but there is one other scene that does really stand out in the horror element, which is when the 40 people at Jupe's show are actually sucked inside of the creature and you see them being slowly sucked through its digestive tract. That's a pretty horrific.
That's the best sound design moment in the movie for me. Like, it's just terrifying. The sound design of the people, like hearing them in the sky, and it's so fucked up.
That is something that, from a Jaws perspective, I wish, like Ben, you and I both pointed out, there's wonderful little things where, like the barrels being attached to Jaws, they play up the tension without having to see the creature, and they let you know where it is or whatnot. And they've got different things in this film that play into that. But one that I think they could have done a better, not a better job, because they did a great job, masterful job, but I wish there was almost more of, was the people screaming in the clouds. Moments where you're like, what is that noise coming from above me?
Yeah.
And like, I think they could have almost done more with that. But I mean, this is already a long movie. I just think now that I'm in love with the movie, I want more of it. I want a sequel that gives us more of what this creature's capable of.
Yeah. Maybe I want to ask both of you guys this. Maybe it's just me, but I'm starting to be more like you, John, where I'm seeing a lot of stuff in this movie, so I want to talk about it. I feel because originally, it's kind of meant to look like a UFO, a flying saucer, like, and then you kind of see that it shifts. To me, it's getting madder and madder, and that's when it starts to shift and look different because it's a very temperamental creature. Apparently, it's very territorial, and it shifts in its look a lot when it gets pissed off. That's what I think. But I think the original look, because we don't really know what this thing looks like, if it even has an original look. I feel the reason that it kind of comes off hokey at first and looking like a flying saucer from the 1950s movies is because that's what it's trying to. It almost is like self-aware that like, oh, I should look like a flying saucer. I don't know. Am I crazy?
Well, I think so. I think in the very end when they send up the Jupe balloon, which I think is also, there's a lot of symbolism in the balloons being what they kill the creature with, what sets off Gordy, and those are kind of like, fame is basically like a balloon. It's beautiful to look at, it's spectacle, but often it's just filled with air behind a thin veil, and it only takes something very simple to just pop that, and wow, it's all gone. The spectacle's all gone. So I think that's why balloons are very important in the film.
Yeah,
but
you're going deep.
You can with this movie, I think, but in the end, when you see it suck in the balloon, it tries to revert back to that form. I almost feel like it eats best in that spaceship form, because that's it's like pulling the big balloon in through that center hole, so it has to go back to that look to be able to consume it the way that it does.
But my question was, do you think it was a conscious decision by this creature thing to like mimic the look of like an old spacecraft? Like, I don't ask me how it would. I have no idea how it would.
Well,
I think that anything about this. We don't know anything about this thing.
I think that the saucer form is one of its most natural forms,
okay,
and that may play into why we have seen things in the sky and thought they were saucers with little men inside of them. But maybe often those times that we saw something, it was one of these creatures.
What about you, Kat? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's probably also why he chose that shape, because I get, or like why Jordan Peele chose to make it a saucer. It's like, oh, people say they see saucers all the time, flying in the clouds, whatever. And then you have the age old, cartoons of like the UFOs sucking up all the cows. I'm like, what are they going to do with a bunch of cows? And it's like, oh, okay, so it's like an animal, it's eating things.
Yeah,
and it gives it, even though there's no logic to a flying saucer being aerodynamic in the Earth's atmosphere, in the context of, the history of science fiction movies, oh, it's really aerodynamic, it's really cool. So he puts it in there because at first, what are people going to pick up on it as? Some will think, oh, it's a UFO. But no, because the Haywood's used to train animals, like, no, I can see that. That's an animal. He knows how to recognize it. And it does give it a bit of a disguise, because it doesn't really start opening up and showing its true form till you get to the third act.
Well, at one point it looks like a cowboy hat.
No, it looks like it looks like a sombrero
yeah.
At one point.
It's a pretty interesting, cool design, in my opinion. I dug it in all of its forms for the most part.
I love it, and it goes with just Jordan Peele not giving a fuck. Jordan Peele not giving a fuck and just making what he wants to make. And we need more movies like this where the filmmaker just has ideas. Apparently this was from a nightmare that he had, where people get sucked up into like a spaceship, and it's very similar to War of the Worlds from 2005, where they kind of suck you up and then they spit out your blood to like lay their atmosphere or whatever, lay their
terraforming.
Yeah, I think in this one, when it was spilling out all of its blood, it was marking its territory. As you said, it's a very territorial animal. It's
taking a crap on top of the house.
Well, that's what animals do. They piss on things to mark their territory. There's that one other scene where Keith David comes back in for a flashback, and he's talking, he's looking out into the field, and he says, you hear ghosts out there? He's getting all territorial. It's just those little moments are just all play into this the whole movie. I think every line of dialogue in this movie is just so much connected.
My biggest problem with this movie is, how dare you give us Keith David and then take him away so fast?
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, Keith David's in this movie, holy shit, and then he's not, and I'm like, god damn it. Like,
But the fact, how he's taken out, that like if we had a couple scenes with him, then we might be like, you know what, here comes the moment where we're going to lose Keith David.
no,
The
yeah,
fact that it
he
happens
goes
in that
quick.
initial scene does help with a shock factor there.
Again, you and I were talking about that wonderful shot that's all one take where Keith David's on the horse and the stuff starts falling out of the sky, and then the camera moves to shield Keith David on the horse, and then it pans back around and you see him kind of, and you're like, oh, he doesn't look the same. He's hunched over that horse, like something happened to it's so good. It's so good.
And then he falls off the horse.
The whole discovery of, even though they set this rule up where if you don't look at it, it doesn't hurt you, that rule was just thrown out the window, and it's not a very good plot point because it doesn't hold much merit towards the last act of the movie. But finding out that if you just don't look at it, it kind of leaves you alone. But then you find out that's bullshit. But just what I'm trying to get at is the house getting shit on with blood is just a wonderful sequence. I love it. It could have almost been the climax of the movie, I think at one point I almost thought it was the end, but then
my first viewing, I thought it was a weird place to end the movie. Like it wasn't very, I don't know. I had the same feeling that you did. I was like, is this movie over? Oh wait, no, we've got a lot more.
Yeah, no, that was just the end of the second act, which I think that's why the pinnacle of the movie for me was the end of the second act, because I think the third act, even though we get more Michael Wincott, which every movie benefits from that, I just don't. The third act for me is just a little, like I said, the rule that they had about not looking at it just goes out the window as fast as it came in. So yeah,
I agree with you, Ben. And it's a big sin for most monster movies is if you have a rule of how your monster's supposed to act, you can't just throw it out just for the sake of fun excitement at the end of the film or whatever. And that happens in a lot of monster movies, but it was a shame to see that kind of happen in something that I thought was so well put together in so many other aspects, but they do kind of throw out their rules.
This movie gets a pass because the movie is not set around that rule. It's just sort of a late reveal that kind of gets scrapped later. It's different if it's like something like It Follows, where the rules and the logistics are set up very early on in the movie, and if you deviate from that, then you've lost your concept. This movie, it didn't make anything less interesting because it was kind of a late reveal anyway, and then like I said, it's non-consequential in the end anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. There's
a stretch that actually goes from the Gordy scene all the way to the end of the house being the blood dripping on the house scene. That's probably my favorite section of the film, but it's multiple scenes. I guess I would say the Gordy scene is probably the most memorable.
Well, that's the most memorable, but it's not my favorite just because it's got monkey.
Yeah, well, okay, you're right. If I was picking based on favorites, then yeah, I might lean into like the house, the blood dripping on the house and OJ in the truck and all that stuff like that.
I think there's a lot of amazing moments, and there's so many shots you can just dissect. We should just make a cinema episode where we just dissect shots and actually show the shots if we don't get a copyright strike. But I would love to dissect the shots because I haven't seen, this isn't like my favorite movie of the year like it is yours, but I haven't seen a movie with like interesting shot selection like this in a while. Like I think Everything Everywhere All at Once has some beautifully constructed shots too, but I think this movie lives and dies by its filmmaking, which is ironic because it's kind of about filmmaking. So
if Ricky's been doing this for 6 months, how come nobody's been interested?
Yeah, how hasn't he understood like don't look at it, if that was even a rule? Like there's so many things.
To be fair, the don't look at it thing is something that OJ just assumes. He gets it.
I think you're right. That was more of like a character trait on his part. Like you might be right, Kat. I didn't even think about that. It might not actually be a rule. It's just like that's what he thinks because it kind of backs off.
Yeah. Mr. Wizard never actually shows up and clarifies the science behind the alien.
Welcome to another episode of Cat Debunks.
Well, like when the alien comes to kill everybody at the ranch, it's because it got fed the fake horse. And you notice in the scene when they're getting sucked up inside the alien in the digestive tract, you see that the plastic horse is still there.
Yeah, it's stuck there.
It can't digest it, so it's upset. And that's why when Ricky notices, hey, it's showing up a bit early, it's like, it's like, well, it's angry, and it assumes because all the horses have come from Ricky's western town or whatever, it assumes that's where that one came from too. So it's angry. That's why he comes to kill everybody. I don't think it's so much because they're looking at it.
Now I did.
No, you're right.
I kind of bought into that being the reason why after 6 months of doing this is the one where it comes all the way in and sucks the viewers up, is because it was the first time he brought an entire audience of eyes and turned the creature into a spectacle for other people.
But is it the first time he's done that? Like, I don't understand.
I think it
Why
is.
is
Like the way he's presenting
it
sounds like a show he's done for a while.
Yeah, that's what it seems
but
like.
Not in front of an audience. He's never done it in front of an audience.
No, I know, and I love that scene where OJ is like, on the horse at night, and he sees that Ricky is rehearsing. The light. That is a great scene where the light comes up, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then you realize he's rehearsing the show. But why has he only done this show this one time? And to me, I don't know, John. There was like 15 people in the audience that weren't staff members, right?
Yeah, it wasn't many. It's supposed to be total about 40 people that get stuck.
Yeah, I thought he was supposed to be this. I think we're supposed to believe that he thinks he's like a bigger thing than he is, or something.
Oh yeah, he's an inflated balloon.
He's a great character. I love him. Glenn from The Walking Dead. He's a great actor. I'm glad to see him getting movie roles, and he was up for an Oscar last year for a movie I never heard of or saw.
Yeah, but Ben, that was another shot that I thought was done really well. That was great. That sold you the whole moment. The Ricky character is looking up. He's got his cowboy hat on. He's having that moment of realization, looking in the sky of, I think I just fucked up. This isn't how this should have happened, and things are starting to swirl around behind him, and it holds on his face watching this moment. And all you get of the people being sucked up is their shadows swirling past him in the background. One person goes by, another person goes by. You hear the screams and everything, so you know what's happening. But they never give you this wide shot of the moment of people all around the arena being sucked up. It just holds on his face, his realization, and the shadow of people going behind in the whirlwind. And I just think that's such a great way to sell that moment without having to turn it into a bigger effect shot and spectacle shot.
So, I agree. The decision to not show the special effects and just to show the person's facial expression, that goes eons more.
Yeah.
Mainly, I don't think that there was any gender type of politics in this. I think the decision to have Kiki kind of be the hero in the end, to me, it's an homage to Spielberg, where the most optimistic person is the one that succeeds in the end. So yeah, Kaluuya is a great actor. His character is a little strange in this movie. Like, you don't really know a lot about him because he's kind of a quiet, reserved guy. So I was more than happy to see her kind of take the win than him, just because he's sort of like, well, what is he like? What's his motivation for anything? I mean, I get his motivation.
Well, he's trying to. He wants to save the ranch and continue his father's business.
I get that.
It's interesting that you mentioned that now, because when I think about it for a second, Ben, obviously the Antlers Pulse character is supposed to be a bit like Quint, the grizzled old guy who will do anything to get the most. But then if you look at Emerald and OJ is the one who has a bit of knowledge about the animals and understanding of what's going on, kind of like Dreyfuss's character, who's a oceanographer. And then you have, the cop who's out of his element, which is kind of Kiki. She's not a cop, obviously, but she's the one who doesn't have an understanding of the animals as well, and doesn't, understand the Quint character, his obsession and everything like that.
Yeah.
I don't think they're exactly the same, but now that you pointed out, Ben, I'm like, oh, each one of them does have a little bit of aspect of those three characters.
Well, that's also the thing with Hooper. You think he dies, and then you find out that he's actually alive at the end, like they did with OJ or Quint. Yeah. It's not just that Quint survived the Indianapolis. The fact that he got the tattoo removed shows that it's still bothering him, which is why he's so obsessed with catching the shark and doesn't want any help and being able to do it. Similar to Antlers Holst, who's been so bored because he's, like you said, he's bored with his life. He hasn't had any real challenge for artistically, and now here it is.
Yeah, that is such a great comparison, those two guys. The only difference is, I think, is that Wincott's character didn't sabotage the entire mission as Quinn does, you know.
A little bit when he takes the camera and says, I'm going up inside of it. I don't
Yeah, but he
care.
still has that. And by the way, let's give some love to that amazing camera that he created, that crank camera that just works without electricity. It's fucking rad.
When Angel is rolling down the hill after getting hit in the face with the plastic blanket thing,
Yeah.
you see a film canister roll next to him, and it does not pop open in the shot we see. It could land somewhere and be salvageable. The camera that gets sucked up with antlers also comes when Angel is dropped after he's been sucked up with the barbed wire. So the second time he kind of gets sucked up and he's got the barbed wire on him. When he comes down and hits the ground, the camera hits the ground next to him. It's kind of smashed, but it does not pop open.
Yeah.
Both of those things are potentially still around to be collected, and the spectacle may be viewed by the world. We don't know.
And they put us through the ringer with Angel. Like, I thought he was going to die like 15 different times and he never does.
He was another one of those characters when they first introduced him, his way of greeting them at the counter. I was like, oh my God, I hope this guy's just a one scene thing. And the fact that he's through the entire movie and you grow to love him and be such a great character all the way through.
Yeah. I think that's the big difference between Jordan Peele and Shyamalan is I think Jordan Peele they both have amazing concepts, but I think Jordan Peele is better at writing people.
Well, if that was a Shyamalan moment, that would have been Shyamalan behind the counter.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Well, he would have been the cameraman that was going to save the world. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, he would have been Antlers Pulse.
No,
right?
but Angel would have been a stereotype, and they would have force fed a bunch of shitty, cringy jokes, you know. So I do think Peele has a better sense of people as far as please go see it. It's my favorite Jordan Peele movie. But yeah, this to me is his best movie so far, especially on a technical level. It's brilliant technically.
Start a new conversation.
We're gonna let John go because he has not seen Bullet Train, and me and Kat aren't gonna have 2 hours worth of discussion on Bullet Train. It's not very layered, but it's great. So
it's not the layered onion that you Jordan Peele back like no.
I just made my skin crawl, John.
I'll okay. Well, I'm gonna jump off here and I'm gonna continue to peel that onion. Just keep thinking about it.
All
right, later, man.
All right, guys. Good to catch up with you guys. Have fun.
All right, bro. Okay, so Kat and I are gonna move on and spoil a movie that came out this weekend. I don't know how it's doing. I hope it's doing well because again, I think Kat, it's an original property. It's not. I don't think it's based. Is it a book or?
Yes, it's based on a novel.
Oh, okay. So it is based off a novel, but still, it feels original. And what's his name? David Leitch. I think that's how you say his last name. David Leitch, the director.
Yeah.
He has made some of my favorite action choreographed movies. Maybe not movies in general, but Atomic Blonde blew me away with its action. Obviously, Deadpool 2, and then John Wick. The action stands out in those movies, where the characters don't stand out quite as much. I think this one, you finally do like the characters, in my opinion. What do you think of this movie, Kat? I kind of thought it was a blast.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. Like, as everybody's been saying, it's like a Guy Ritchie movie that wasn't directed by Guy Ritchie. But it's some of the characters are surprisingly well written, while at the same time there's like a lot of exposition up front. Like, they tease.
Yes.
Like, you have your cold open, okay, with the father and the grandson, okay, but then you kind of meet Brad Pitt. You hang out with him for maybe 10 minutes before it takes off for like 25 or so to tell all these different backstories of all these different characters who are on the train. And then at that point, it was kind of slowing down a bit. I'm like, I wonder where we're going with this. And then it kind of came back around to him. I'm like, okay, now we're off to the races. And I doubt that most people who walk out of the theater would be able to even remember all the logic and how everything ties itself. Like, how
it's got some convoluted aspects for sure.
Yeah, convoluted, no verisimilitude whatsoever, but you just don't care because you're having so much fun.
No, and that's the thing. It's got that Deadpool. It's almost fourth wall breaking. It's not, but I was expecting that almost from Brad Pitt. He was having the most fun I've seen Brad Pitt have in a movie in a long time, where he's just full blown. To me, I called him the Jack Burton. He's basically Jack Burton in this movie, where he's the protagonist, but he doesn't really matter that much to everything that's going on, especially in the end. He doesn't really have anything to do with the ending. I love that he's just kind of bumbling around. And
yeah, it's like he's the vessel through which the story is passing through.
Yes.
And he's just kind of there. And I like how the climax doesn't try and shoehorn him in as the guy who's going to be the hero.
It's so great. Yeah.
Right. And so yeah, I like how, you're trying to pick up on how all these things are connecting. You're watching it, and it's fun because the characters bring something unique to the table. Like you said, the hitmen aren't just bland, boring hitmen. It's like, oh, they're brothers, and they play that joke for a little bit. And one of them being obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, teaching him everything he needs to know about life and people. He could read people excellently thanks to Thomas. It turns out he can't.
I love that. He's been talking about trains this whole time. He doesn't know about trains. He's like, it was a metaphor. Like, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Brian Tyree Henry does a great British accent too. He nailed it. He fucking nailed it.
For sure. And then all the other kind of people were talking about the cameos throughout this movie. Some of them I recognized, others I didn't at first. Pretty funny, I must say, how they're tying that back. I like Channing Tatum just kind of sitting on the train, and or Ryan Reynolds, who shows up for one shot.
That was great, because it's like, it's so different that Ryan Reynolds doesn't have any speaking part. He's just there. I thought the Channing Tatum one went on too long. Like I was like, okay, let's do the one joke and then get rid of him. But then they showed him again, and that's fine. But my favorite cameo was Karen Fukuhara for sure, from The Boys.
They played the same joke with Channing Tatum twice. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, it's this. Yeah, we didn't need the second one. Yeah.
And I like also that repeatedly they show that Ladybug does try and get off the train numerous times. And for why he doesn't, as opposed to, like, again, movies like Get Out or every horror movie where you're screaming at the protagonist just to get the hell out, and they can't, or they don't. Whereas here he actually tries multiple times to get off the train, and he doesn't.
Yeah, I when I was watching this, I was watching it with a friend, and when we finished it, I'm like, every single thing that you would think was a plot hole was kind of filled, whether it was believable or not. Like, why is there nobody else on this train? Like, why are they making all this noise and no one cares? And then you find out there's just a line of dialogue. Well, he bought every ticket. It's like, okay, that makes sense. I mean, it may be a little bit
one of the later stations, because there were quite a few people on the train.
No, there was at the beginning. Yeah.
And then you have admittedly ridiculous things that I just didn't bought and took me out of the movie entirely. Like when Lemon jumps on the train trying to get back on.
That was the dumbest scene for sure. First of all, you can't break that glass. There's no fucking way you can break that.
Wind force coming off the back of the train. The minute he lifts up his hand to try and punch it, he's getting pulled off that train.
Yeah, there's no way, dude. You know how fast those things are moving?
Yeah, same when he and Ladybug are hanging out the side of the train, out the emergency door, holding onto just the seatbelt. It's like, no, sorry, no. And
no, there's a lot of that stuff
nobody getting injured in the big train crash at the end.
Yeah, but that was such a Deadpool, like,
oh yeah,
moment where like Brad Pitt's flying through the air and he gets
I thought it was funny that they tried to apply logic to why he in particular doesn't get injured by having him fall into the giant like Hello Kitty doll.
And I may be a simpleton, but I love like watching mascots fight. You can go on YouTube and watch mascots fighting other mascots, and it's just hilarious. So every time that you saw, I guess it was Zazie Beetz behind the thing.
Yeah, the Hornet.
Hornet. Yeah, but like just that whole character, just being in that suit just makes for instant comedy, even if it's cheap,
Yeah, and like you said, with things that seem like plot holes that aren't later, and when Ladybug reminds you that he took the anti-venom from her, which is why he doesn't die when the snake bites him later in the movie.
Yeah. But those things, they're conveniences, but it makes sense. It's like she had that one EpiPen or whatever, and I feel like, I don't know if Michael Shannon is a cameo or a character. I think he's in it enough to be a character, even though he kind of isn't credited. Like you don't see his name, I don't think, anyway, like on the poster. But I feel like Michael Shannon is becoming this generation's Christopher Walken, where like he shows up in something and you just expect Michael Shannon shenanigans, and that's exactly what we got. You know, like what?
Yeah, because he's more of a character, and like when he's going through his whole soliloquy about why everybody's on the train, and I'm trying to piece together. It's like, okay, so you picked this. It's like you picked the wolf because the wolf wants to kill the hornet. So then and the coincidence that Ladybug's on the train, even though he didn't know that Lemon had shot him before, and seeing how there's other plot parallels that he didn't even take into account because he didn't think Ladybug was going to be on the train.
Yeah.
But that's really fun. Sort of like another thing they point out is they trick you into thinking that Lemon doesn't have any body armor, or that they trick you into thinking Tangerine doesn't have any body armor on. When Lemon gets in his face about that, he's like, "Yeah, don't you know the body armor? Or did you miss that episode of Thomas the Tank Engine?" But he doesn't tell him he is wearing a bulletproof vest. It's just under his shirt.
I found those two characters to be my favorite. I was following them more. I mean, Brad Pitt was great. Like I said, he was having a blast and he was funny, but he was the Jack Burton. The characters I was paying more attention to was Tangerine and Lemon, and that switch they pull on us, where one is dead and then the other one. That was just I did not see that coming, and that's kind of a good thing, even though you kind of don't want Tangerine to die, because he's I don't want to say he's the hero, because he does horrific things, but so does everybody on this train. That's where you got your Guy Ritchie, Tarantino stuff, where everyone's kind of despicable, but you pick and choose who you like. And I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson was just also having a blast as his character, and you kind of are rooting for him, even if there's no way he could have broke that glass and gotten back on the train.
I mean, yeah, people are saying Guy Ritchie, especially because of the tone and the editing, especially.
Yeah,
I didn't actually check to see who the editor was, but it's funny because, like you say, everybody's doing these despicable jobs, whereas at one point Ladybug specifies that I'm just informed I'm not a hitman. He's like, I don't do that. It's just bad luck that everybody keeps dying around me. It's not something I planned on.
Yeah, and it's very self-aware when he says, I'm a snatch and grab guy, because like they used, that was what he used to say in the Ocean's 11 movies. I'm a snatch and grab guy. So I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's a callback to that, or if it's just the character, but I like that they kept saying that, like, he's not a killer, he doesn't need a gun and all that stuff.
Right.
Fighter, but
yeah, and then even like you mentioned, when the Lemon and Tangerine do bad things, but you end up caring about them both when they end up eating it, like Lemon because he's trying to alert that he's trying to tell Ladybug that, hey, this little girl, she's the the asshole, you should stop her, and he doesn't succeed in doing that. And I know they had the joke with the Fiji water bottle that got drugged, but I was half expecting that Tangerine was going to get her while they were still on the train.
Yeah,
up until he passes out. And I do love the fact that they saved that redemption bit for like a mid-credits scene rather than just telling it chronologically in the story, because it just feels like that much more of a victory moment when you see that he's the one who came back to run her over with the truck of tangerines, no less.
Oh, I and I kind of figured that was him. And I'm with you. I'm glad that was shown later instead of right there, because it would have taken away from the moment. But it just, I mean, it made sense in the fact that, well, he already survived this fall, which is probably not plausible, but whatever.
Just you know what I mean? The way that the thing's edited, the way they cut back to certain characters. And
like the flashbacks while they're having quick conversations, and it cuts and it shows you what they're talking about. And just like the European dialect that they use, which is like I can't remember the term for it, but it's like that outskirts. Like Aaron Taylor Johnson he's British, yes, but he doesn't talk like that in real life. It's that different dialect, and it that's a Guy Ritchie thing for sure.
Yeah, and then the humor at other moments really good too, like especially with Ladybug. They keep trying to stress the idea that he seems to be a guy out of his element.
Yeah.
Like he was like, whoa, so somebody paid you to kill it. He paid somebody to kill his son with their own ransom money. That's dark,
Yeah, no, he's got the best lines for sure. Like Brad Pitt's just, like I said, he's just chewing it up, and it's fun to see him doing that. Like that dude's 60 years old. Like, if you remember when we were kids, 60-year-old people looked like Sean Connery, not Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how, like, times have changed as far as like how you get older and stuff like that, that you're still kind of fronting an action movie and doing fight scenes. And I don't know if Brad Pitt did his fight scenes, probably not, but the fact that he could still sell that at his age, and like, it's funny when they have him in the glasses and the hat, he kind of looks like an older guy. And then when they remove those two elements, you're like, oh, that's Brad Pitt. He still looks young. I don't want to say she's my least favorite character, because she's kind of driving the entire thing that happens towards the end. But I think her name is like Lake. What is her name? Joey King.
Yeah, the girl. Yeah, the
Prince.
The girl. I didn't care.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't. Go ahead.
Part of the ending where they're trying to wrap everything back around the White Death character, and her in her whole contrived thing where she's like, oh, I just wanted revenge on the father.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for that. I like the fact that Hiroki Sanada is the elder, is the one who gets to really go after the White Death, but then they kind of take that away from him to let his final bit be with Ladybug. Because of course, the old rule: you pull the gun in Act 1, you're going to fire it in Act 3, namely the gun that's been rigged to explode in your hand.
But he's always so great to see in any movie. And him as the elder, it was great. I love seeing him in anything.
Right, because he's going to come in and have something. He's going to drop a bombshell of some kind, because he's not just there for a cameo. So that was really cool. But yeah, it does feel like much like how early in the beginning they go and off onto these tangents to tell you who all these other characters are. And in the end, it feels like it's doing that a little bit too, trying to wrap everything back around that White Death character rather than
yeah,
with the more playful, fun vibe they had up until that point.
I agree. If the movie wasn't so much fun, I would have so much negative shit to say about the way the plot unfolds in this movie. But again, just like we're talking about with Up, I kind of don't care, just because it wasn't taking itself seriously. So it's like, why should we? I mean, well, we got to talk about the
Logan Lerman was another one, but he didn't.
Logan Lerman. It took me a second to even realize that was him, because he was putting on like an Eastern European accent. I'm like, is that Logan Lerman with long hair and an Eastern European accent?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't have much to do, but again, he's another good actor. I want to say we have to talk about, if we're talking about cameos. Okay, so Sandra Bullock. We all knew that was the girl behind the voice on the phone. I mean, I think I want to say it was in the trailers, but I didn't even really. Yeah, but I didn't really pay attention to the trailers. I just knew I wanted to see this, but I don't know. I don't know if that. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
It's like
I remember the whole thing was that she wanted him to bring the suitcase off the train, but he doesn't really succeed at that. She doesn't really care. She's like, oh, you felt. It's like, yeah, well, I tried to get off,
Well, every single person that puts their hands on this briefcase becomes an instant moron. Like everything, it's like they're all very smart people, and then once they get the briefcase, they're like, oh, you know what? I'll just put it in the trash compactor. It's like, what? Why? Just hold on to it. Like I didn't understand.
Let's stuff the briefcase in with all the other suitcases.
Yeah, that was the dumbest thing, is that the twins, they put it in the fucking, they just put it in the regular like baggage compartment. That is the dumbest thing ever. You put it with the luggage.
The White Death keeps having his minions like meet them at different train stops to see if the job is still going well, and it's like they could just walk on the train themselves and see. It's like, oh, if he's in there, okay, let's go ahead and see what's going on. But no, we're just gonna take their word for it that they're not lying.
Yeah, that was kind of playing into the comedy, I think, because this movie is like it's basically a slapstick comedy where everyone's kind of an idiot, like. So I know what you mean. It's like every time they stop at a stop, and then they're like, well, you know what? Well, we'll just make them think that we're good. We got the case and we got the son. And it's like, well, why don't those people just come on board and see for themselves?
Kind of like the two guys are tasked with actually opening the case at the end of the movie, and they're like, well, what if it blows up in our face?
Those guys that was funny. That was a funny bit though, because they both kind of knew. They're just like, dude, I don't want to open this fucking thing. These masks aren't going to save us.
Yeah, there's dumb. Oh God, I love it. They insulted that. And if White Death was going to believe Ladybug when he says that, hey man, I'm not Carver, I'm just filling in for him.
Yeah, it becomes kind of a non-issue, but yeah.
Yeah, because I thought I always say the end credits of movies anyway, but I was half expecting there to be like a post-credit bit with Ryan Reynolds as
With
Carver.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
Like something to kind of close it out. Like maybe there was a really dumb reason why he didn't actually show up to do that job.
Yeah. Or like, I'm never calling in sick again. Some stupid ham. Yeah, no, it's better that they just gave Ryan Reynolds that, like, oh, okay. So Carver was Ryan Reynolds. Okay, that's all we need to know.
You can't really think about the logic to it because like it says, everything's falling apart and everything happens just too perfectly, but it's too fun to care about. Kind of like in a Guy Ritchie movie. It's like, I don't care how implausible all these connections and stuff are, it works. Yeah.
I agree. That's a perfect way to put it. It's like, it's just one of those. I mean, we were just talking about Nope, where me and John were blowing that movie and saying, like, you know what, forget about the plot holes, forget about how illogical and ridiculous it is. It did it for us, and this is one of those movies that I appreciate in the late summer months where, it seems like obviously movie theaters are hopefully, kind of back to normal, and we have our summer schedules where when you get an R-rated comedy in August, R-rated action comedy directed by the guy that did Deadpool and John Wick, it's like, fuck yeah, like give me that stuff all day, like I don't need any more Marvel crap. Like give me more of these movies and I will pay to see these,
Yeah, granted this is based on a novel, but it feels totally fresh because again, it's not trying to get you to take it seriously. It's just like, stop thinking about it and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And original properties are also a much higher gamble these days. Unfortunately, that's how the studio sees it. Like, oh, if it's not based on some existing IP, we can't do it.
But even this movie, like being based on a book, I never heard of it. Had you heard of it?
I'd never heard of it.
To me, it's kind of an original property because they just like licensed some book that I'm guessing is not like a bestseller, and they just said, "Hey, let's make a movie," And I can even see them making. Well, I don't know if this movie. I have no idea if this movie's making money or not. I haven't even looked at the trades, but
yeah, it says it's made 62.5 million so far this weekend.
Oh, good. 62. I see. That's awesome. It's R-rated. That is great. It deserves to make that. And I'm happy that it's doing that good because it's not a masterpiece. It's not going to win Oscars. You and I, we've seen better movies, but I'm so happy that it's doing well because it works and it's fun. It's like, what's wrong with that?
Trying to figure out, like, okay, even when he walks on the train and first gets a suitcase, this guy recognizes him, the wolf, as he calls it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, don't stop, just charge forward, get off the train. It's like, you don't want to fight this guy on the train.
But then they do that great. This movie has a lot of
and I like that bit in the car or in the minibar car where he keeps trying to disguise the guy to make it look like he's just like chilling out.
Well, I love that. And then when he kills Zaz, and when he kills what's her name, Zazie Beetz, yeah, he puts her up next to him. I love him because he's Brad Pitt. Like his Ladybug is just he's not a complex character. He's very simple-minded, and he's just in the midst of this shit. And that's a great way to tell a story through the prism of something like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, very Jack Burton, very, very Big Trouble in Little China. Like he's just there. He's not the game changer. He's just there. That's another thing I'll say about this movie. It's got great violence. It doesn't hold back from violence. And
that's true. It's very, it leans into that very hard.
It does.
I was wondering though, when he says that, when the White Wolf says he bought all the tickets for the rest of the train ride for the end of it, what happened to the conductor?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, because there's no one in there.
There's like nobody there, and there's I like that bit also where they come up with their plan, and then Tangerine's like, "Oh crap, I can't read Japanese."
And I love that scene. I love that scene where he's like, "My brother died, but now I got another brother." He's like, "Really? You think of me as a brother?" He's like, "Fuck no."
Yeah, I'm glad they did that too, because I thought the way they were kind of starting to get along that they were going to try and push that. Oh, they're going to be partners now. No, fuck no.
The movie actually breathes. It gives you that time, the sad moment where Aaron Taylor, where Tangerine. Wait, who's Tangerine? Who's Lemon? I can't remember.
Lemon is Aaron Taylor.
Okay, when Lemon he goes on a rampage because he thinks Tangerine is dead, and then he dies because his artery just gets, blasted. Like, so you have like 2 scenes of mourning from each of those characters, and like, I don't know, both of those scenes, like, they breathe. I'm not like, again, I'm not saying this is like Oscar worthy shit, but the movie like lets those characters have their moments, especially knowing that like we kind of like these guys more than anybody else, or at least as much, as Lady.
Well, yeah, that goes back to like the nice extended flashbacks for a lot of these characters as well. Kind of like when you first meet Lemon and Tangerine, and they go into this whole diatribe about whether or not they killed 16 or 17 people trying to rescue the kid.
Yeah, I love that scene. The audience
that
was going nuts, man.
And that was something. I'm like, money well spent for montage. Most movies wouldn't, like smaller movies like this wouldn't spend that kind of money for a extended montage of just a conversation. They would just do it with dialogue, but no, they're going to show us the whole thing, which is kind of cool.
Well, did you notice that a lot of the action stunts and explosions in this movie were just flashback scenes, which is great. Like when they show the cars colliding and exploding, it's like, wow, like they did that stunt just for a scene of exposition. It wasn't even part of the story. I mean, it was, but you know what I mean? It's like they did a lot of that stuff. And that was the most Guy Ritchie moment in the movie when they're doing the body count. Like I loved that scene. If people watch this movie and they come out and say it's meh, I'm like, man, you weren't paying attention to that scene. That scene was great.
The climax was kind of like, okay, we have to have the obligatory explain-a-vision scene to tie in all of the ludicrous stuff that's been happening. And that's why I was kind of surprised when it ended up being Ladybug having the final thing with the White Death, which is like, yeah, on the one hand, I get it because he's more or less the protagonist.
Yeah.
Even though it was written in such a way that the Elder should have been the one to have that. Like, let him have that, because the story is not really about, oh, it's going to lead to the White Death. You're more interested in like, how are these guys going to get off this train? How are they going to, is he going to get away with the mission or not? Especially now that he fails because the case just, he loses the money.
Well, that's the whole thing. The movie in and of itself is about this case, which in the end doesn't matter at all. It's almost like some people could almost feel like I got kicked in the balls for watching this movie because it's all about this case. And then when a character comes in late in the 3rd act and goes like, well, the case doesn't matter. Like, that was just a thing to get you all here. I could see people going like, what? Fuck that.
Yeah, part of that in the climax was kind of annoying how they do go into the extended flashbacks to tie everything in rather than having as many clues sprinkled throughout the movie.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. It does rely a lot on exposition. Yeah.
Yeah, it relies a bit too much on exposition, but it's still, again, you're enjoying it too much to care about.
Yeah, because you'd rather see those fun extended flashback scenes that are like, again, very Guy Ritchie. That's like, those scenes are so much fun and they're played so goofy and like fun, full of energy.
Right, and even the joke how each of the train cars has its own theme.
Yeah,
I know. Bar, the quiet car, the kids' car, the regular coach car. It's like, okay. Which is, because I couldn't tell what the hell was going on in the kids' car, because Hornet's dressed in the big giant, Hello Kitty type thing. And that was just hilarious when she is in the costume and kills Logan Learman. And up until that point, I fell for it like everybody else. That, oh, this is just some dumb gag they're using with the big doll. And then when she kills him, that was so funny.
And that was a good reveal too. That like,
yeah, it was a great reveal.
The person they've been talking about this whole movie is the one in the fucking costume.
And I was like, oh, that's why the snake is on the train. And even a simple joke like when you have the news anchor talking about how the snake has been kidnapped, and there's like on the ticker tape it says all of Japan is terrified by this one snake having gotten out. I'm like, okay, that's a bit much, but that's okay. It gets a laugh because that's what it's there for.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly.
Or like when Ladybug's getting all distracted by the toilet in the lavatory, and how he's just mesmerized by how it works.
I love that he wrote "Don't open, snake inside" or something. It's those little touches where you're like, Ladybug is such a good guy. Like how did he get in this field? He just seemed, but it seems like maybe he wasn't always a good guy, and he's kind of like now turning that leaf or whatever,
You're
like
right, because you're right. He doesn't seem like a character who's cut out for any of this at
no,
all.
no. He
Even
looks like he's out of his element in every scene, except for he
doesn't
can
feel
fight. He can fight like a motherfucker.
right, and he doesn't feel like an immoral person who would go around stealing. Because everything he does in this movie is more in the line of self-defense. He doesn't
Yes.
instigate fights with anybody, and so
No.
it's kind of I'm trying to picture even a scenario where there's no violence, how he's comfortable going in and stealing shit and that kind of thing. It's like, okay.
Even when he approaches Tangerine and he goes, "There's a gun under this table," he doesn't have a gun.
Right, because he doesn't like them and he left it behind, but he brought the firecrackers.
Yeah, the firecracker gag was not like when you see those in the locker at the beginning, you're like, oh, this is gonna be cool, but it's just kind of stupid.
Right.
It's just like there's firecrackers going off in the mid car, so it's like, okay, well, I kind of figured that. All right.
Yeah, I did find it funny though that he's like deathly afraid at one point of being caught by the conductor and thrown back off the train.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's such
Which is again,
such a regular guy.
Yeah, and it's a sign of him being a good person as well. Because if he were a bad person, he'd be like, "This guy's a little scrawny guy. I'll just beat him up." Just
yeah, or I'll just kill the conductor and put him in the closet or whatever. Yeah, no, but
but he's not, that
doing
doesn't
everything by the book. Yeah,
yeah. I did like that funny joke also when you knew he was going to kick Lemon off the train. It's like, come on, Lemon, you're smart enough. You should see this, but he doesn't. And he kicks him off, and then he just starts like mocking him as the train's taking off. Or like the joke where they're doing the fake. He's like, hey, they don't know what Tangerine looks like. I'll do this for you. He's like, okay. And they're standing out there on the platform, and he just kind of rolls his fingers over the combination and gets the right one.
Yeah. Well, that goes in that whole theory or the plot of the movie where it's like his luck fucks him up. He's like, my luck. It's like he's like, why did you even? I love that little banter. He's like, why did you even attempt that? He's like, I don't know. I just thought I was trying to sell it. He's like, they were buying it.
I didn't get why the other guy who opens the case was able to do it, because even he says, lady, finding the combination could take forever.
So ridiculous, because you know how many combinations there are. Like, there's just no way he would have been able to open that. No fucking.
There's no way. And I don't think they showed you what the combination was. She says something like, "Oh, just guess the obvious ones" or something like that. And I'm like, wait, what? But he manages to get it. And it's like, okay, that was a bit contrived.
Yeah, there was a lot of that stuff with her specifically. That
and he was hired.
It was fine. She was good in the role. Her character wasn't bad. It was just like her whole thing kind of set a bunch of shit off, and it went nowhere.
I can't remember. How did he know to even come on the train to kill her? And granted, he didn't know she was a girl, but like he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking for somebody," because he had the gun to begin with. I don't know. I don't remember them explaining that in any of the flashbacks as to why he knew to be on that. Because presumably he's looking for the guy who pushed his kid off the roof.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he knew that person would be on the train. Maybe he got a note or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's probably like intel or something that said that. But yeah,
I'd have to go back and watch this a couple more times. But it's enjoyable enough. I'll get it on home media, so I'll wait.
I will definitely get it, and I will watch it with other people, because we'll wrap this up. But I found this movie fun and funny, and if I come away with anything, Brad Pitt should do more funny stuff, because he really shines when he just kind of lets go and doesn't try to be too serious. I mean, he did that with his Oscar-winning role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He didn't play it too serious, but he's just having so much fun in this movie. Like, and you can see it. It's just like seeping through, and the other thing I can say is, why is Aaron Taylor Johnson not a bigger star? He's great in everything, but that's my takeaway. I think it's fun. I think the director is just making fun action movies. I'm happy that this movie's making money. So
yeah, looking at his filmography, this is my favorite from him so far.
I think it is too. It's my favorite too. I mean, I like Deadpool 2 a lot. I don't like it as much as Deadpool 1. So I would have to put this at the top of his filmography. I like John Wick. It's fine. I mean, I don't love those movies as much as some people do.
It's like the John Wick movies. The first one has the most plot, but doesn't handle it very well. but the second and third movie, and presumably the fourth one, having seen the trailer, is very stylized and in a way that it's just eye candy, even though they're very light to non-existent on plot.
After the first one, I couldn't tell the difference between any of the other ones. There's nothing to them except headshots and kung fu, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
And the art direction specifically is what I was talking about in terms of it just looking like eye candy. Whereas the first one didn't really have that, and so I thought that he did. Because he was an uncredited director on that as well. It was said because initially the credit for the first one anyway was given to Chad Stahelski, but it said David Leitch worked on that one too. But yeah, so this one's my favorite from him so far.
Well, everybody, you can find Kat on the Phantasmagorium show channel here on YouTube. What's the next Tarantino thing you guys are doing?
Grindhouse.
Oh no, you guys are doing Death Proof. Have fun with that one. I'll be watching.
Yeah, we're trying to talk Scotty into doing the Rodriguez movie since we're overlapping enough of them anyway. So we're trying to decide if we should.
Well, you
split
guys did Dust Till Dawn, which is not technically a Tarantino movie, but
yeah, it's like a Tarantino by proxy in a way. So we're trying to decide if we're going to split Grindhouse in half or not. We'll see.
Well, I can't wait to watch it, and I can't wait to be on the Hateful Eight one because you and I share a love for that movie. So I'm sure we'll have fun talking about that one. But find Kat there, and thanks, guys. Thanks everyone for letting us indulge into some spoiler discussions of some good movies that you should watch. And until next time, Kat, thank you.
Thank you.
And we drink your cinema, everyone.